At NEWSCENTER tonight. The world zooms in on Chinese President Xi Jinping's upcoming visit to North Korea. Tonight, we take a closer look at what the trip means for China, North Korea, and the key regional players.
2 of 4 North Korean fishermen who were rescued in the East Sea say they want to defect to the south. The other 2, meanwhile, have returned to the north.
South Korea plans to adopt a new electricity billing system for the peak summer months of July and August to reduce the burden on households.
And as tensions continue to soar between Washington and Tehran, the Pentagon says it will deploy 1,000 more troops to the Middle East to counter what it calls Iranian hostilities. NEWSCENTER begins now. Good evening and welcome to Arirang News Center, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Noaram.
And I'm Han-daeun. Welcome to our program. Chinese President Xi Jinping will be visiting Pyongyang later this week, the first Chinese leader to do so in 14 years. His visit comes just ahead of the South Korea-U.S. summit, as well as the G20 summit in Japan.
Hopes are rising the upcoming trip could help in resuming nuclear talks between Pyongyang and Washington. Ko Ryun-hee has our top story.
Amid the deadlock in denuclearization talks between Pyongyang and Washington, the International Department of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China revealed on Monday that Chinese leader Xi Jinping will visit the North from June 20th to the 21st. North Korea state media also confirmed the visit.
At the invitation of Kim Jong-un, chairman of the Workers' Party of Korea and chairman of the State Affairs Commission of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, Chinese President Xi Jinping will pay a state visit to our country from June 20th to 21st.
This will mark President Xi's first trip to North Korea since he came to power in 2012. The last Chinese leader to visit the North was Hu Jintao in 2005. Chinese state media reports the visit marks the 70th anniversary of China and North Korea establishing diplomatic ties and will further contribute to improving bilateral relations. As for the rough itinerary, the 2 leaders are not only expected to discuss related issues but also participate in activities such as visiting the Sino-North Korean Friendship Tower in Pyongyang. This monument commemorates Chinese soldiers who fought alongside North Koreans during the Korean War. The visit comes after North Korea's denuclearization talks with the U.S. collapsed dramatically in Hanoi earlier this year. An analyst told the South China Morning Post on Monday that the visit has great geopolitical significance and will allow Beijing to continue to play an important role in Korean Peninsula affairs. It's also worth noting that the meeting in North Korea will take place a week before the G20 summit in Japan, where U.S. President Donald Trump and President Xi are expected to meet amid the escalating trade tensions between the 2 countries. Ko Ryun-hee, Arirang News.
A visit by President Xi Jinping to North Korea was foreseeable, as North Korean leader Kim Jong-un had already made 4 visits to China while inviting Xi to the North. But why now, and what do both sides gain from the highly anticipated meeting? Arirang's Oh Jung-hee turned to some experts for some clues.
A 5th face-to-face between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Chinese President Xi Jinping, this time in the North Korean capital. Last year, there were 4 summits between Kim and Xi, all in China, with Kim making the trip there. And it's been expected that Xi would visit North Korea in return this year. Regarding why it has to be now, experts say China wants to show the U.S. its still strong influence over North Korea amid the trade war and political tensions over Hong Kong and Taiwan.
This year, North Korea and China celebrate 70 years of diplomatic ties. But other than that, China intends to show the US that it's got the North Korea card amid intensifying conflicts with the US.
For North Korea, Xi's visit is a gigantic blessing, a pundit says.
Diplomatically, it's the first visit to North Korea by a Chinese president in 14 years, which can show that the North is no longer an isolated state. It's a big present to Kim Jong-un, who failed to achieve much at summits in Hanoi and Vladivostok. Also, Xi's visit shows that China trusts and supports North Korea's domestic politics, which helps in regime security.
Humanitarian assistance may also follow, with China offering large amounts of rice and fertilizer to the north. As to whether the upcoming summit would help revive the stalled nuclear talks, experts were doubtful. They say what China aims is to show its influence in the region amid its hegemonic competition with the U.S. The leaders, Kim and Xi, therefore are likely to highlight their original stance, calling for the North's regime security and step-by-step denuclearization. 우정희, Arirang News.
Chinese President Xi Jinping's two-day visit to North Korea will mark the shortest trip to the north by any Chinese leader. Our Lee Ji-won now takes a look back at the former Chinese president's visits to Pyongyang.
Xi Jinping's visit to North Korea will be the first time in 14 years that a Chinese president will be visiting the north. The first ever Chinese president to visit North Korea was Liu Shaoqi in 1963. 4 years after coming into office, Liu made a 13-day visit where he met North Korea's founding leader Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-un's grandfather. He mostly went to see cultural performances and some rural areas. The next visit was a 3-day trip by Jiang Zemin in 2001. He had previously visited North Korea as the chairman of the Central Military Commission in 1990. And during his visit as president, Jiang held a meeting with Kim Jong-un's father Kim Jong-il and an expanded meeting with other officials. Hu Jintao was the most recent Chinese president to have visited North Korea. In 2005, he held talks with Kim Jong-il, where they signed an agreement on economic and technological cooperation between the two sides. But Xi Jinping's upcoming trip will be the shortest one of all, as he is staying in North Korea for just 2 days. Watchers say this comes as Xi scheduled his visit in an effort to use it as a card to fight against China's unfavorable situation in its trade war with the U.S. and in passing the extradition bill in Hong Kong. But this is not the first time Xi will be visiting North Korea. In 2008, Xi had visited Pyongyang for 3 days as the vice president of China as part of his 5-nation tour. Then he had an expanded meeting with Kim Jong-il, where Xi promoted the 6-party talks and expressed China's willingness to strengthen the exchange of opinions and cooperation with the North. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
South Korea's foreign minister says she sees good signs that North Korea and the U.S. will get back to talks on denuclearization. Kang was speaking on her way back home after meeting her Russian counterpart in Moscow, but she didn't specify what those signs might be. The two reportedly discussed their countries' bilateral exchanges as well as the current situation on the Korean peninsula and Russia's role in it. Here's the foreign minister.
We agreed that we need to revive the momentum for dialogue and also discussed what kind of messages we need to send out as there are major summits ahead.
Meanwhile, Seoul's nuclear envoy Lee Do-hoon is on his way to Washington. There, he'll be giving a keynote speech at a conference and meeting with his U.S. counterpart, Stephen Biegun. 2 out of 4 North Korean fishermen who were rescued from the East Sea over the weekend say they want to defect to the south. Seoul's Unification Ministry says the other 2 have been sent back home through the inter-Korean border village of Panmunjom. Seoul says it notified Pyongyang of the fact through the Joint Liaison Office on Monday morning, and the North responded later in the day, though how it responded is still unknown. The 2 North Koreans who wish to defect will go through the usual defection procedures, including a re-education process. The South Korean cabinet has endorsed the nomination of Yoon Seok-yeol as the new prosecutor-general. President Moon Jae-in tapped the reformist prosecutor yesterday to take over from Moon Moo-il, who retires next month. After the president's approval, Yoon's nomination will go to the National Assembly, where a hearing will be held. However, the president can appoint him without parliamentary approval. The hearing has to be completed within 20 days after the request is sent, but lawmakers can get another 10 days if they need it. This week, police in Hungary are expected to question the captain of the cruise ship suspected of causing last month's fatal collision with a tourist boat in Budapest. The South Korean government's response team said Monday, local time, that police will pass on the schedule to Korean authorities as well. The captain, identified as Yuri Taplinsky, was released on bail last Thursday after being arrested earlier this month, but he's required to wear an electronic tracking device and meet with investigators twice a week. The captain has denied responsibility for the collision, but police suspect the cruise ship failed to warn the smaller boat that it was going to overtake and are failing to alert the police about the collision. The collision happened on May 29th. The death toll stands at 25, which includes 23 South Koreans. 7 people were rescued from the boat, and the search continues for the 3 still unaccounted for. Now, as tensions continue to soar between Washington and Tehran, the Pentagon has announced it will deploy 1,000 extra troops to the Middle East to counter what it calls Iranian hostilities. Oh Soo-young with the details.
The US will send 1,000 additional troops to the Middle East amid escalating tensions with Iran. Acting Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan announced the plan on Monday as a response to what he called hostile behavior by Iranian forces and their proxy groups in the region. He was quick to add, however, that the US does not seek conflict with Iran. The extra troops have been requested by the US Central Command to address air, naval and ground-based threats in the Middle East. The deployment decision also comes after Washington last week blamed Tehran for an attack on 2 oil tankers in the Gulf of Oman, with the Pentagon releasing images to back the accusation. While Iran has denied responsibility, Shanahan said on Monday that the attacks validate intelligence that Iranian forces threaten US personnel and interests across the region. Washington has already sped up the deployment of an aircraft carrier strike group and long-range nuclear-capable B-52 bombers to the area, citing credible threats. In late May, the Pentagon decided to send an additional 1,500 troops to safeguard US forces and deter Iran from any potential aggression, citing, quote, credible threats. Tehran announced Monday it intends to breach a crucial cap on enriched uranium stocks, which was set by the 2015 nuclear deal that US President Donald Trump withdrew from more than a year ago. Iranian authorities said the country has quadrupled the rate of enrichment, and within 10 days the stockpile would exceed the 300-kilogram limit. Washington has condemned the move as nuclear blackmail, saying it must be met with increased international pressure. However, as the standoff continues, other countries appear concerned of a potential confrontation. China's foreign minister on Tuesday urged the US to, quote, alter its extreme pressure methods, while calling on Iran to tread cautiously on decisions. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
In other news, South Korea plans to adopt a new electricity billing system starting next month to help reduce the burden on households for the peak summer months. Yoon Jung-min with the details.
The new electricity billing system will put more people in the lower 2 of the billing rates by raising the cutoff for the 3rd and most expensive rate. That'll be in effect from July through August. Currently, South Korean households are billed for electricity at 3 different rates, the heaviest users paying 3 times more per unit than the lowest users. The higher cutoff is expected to benefit more than 16 million households, whose bills will be lowered by about $9 a month. On Tuesday, the Trade Ministry chose the new system from among 3 proposals that had been discussed since last December. The need for a change became clear last summer when the country's household electricity use hit a record high due to extreme heat, and many were shocked at their power bills. The other 2 plans were to adopt either a 2-rate system in summer or a flat-rate system throughout the year. But it was felt those systems might favor some particular households rather than benefit as many as possible. The Korea Electric Power Corporation will draft the official revision and submit it for government approval. Once that's done, the new system will come into effect next month. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Korea's small and mid-sized companies are calling for a freeze in the minimum wage for next year. 15 associations for small businesses, including the Korea Federation of SMEs, said earlier today that the double-digit minimum wage hikes of the last 2 years have hurt their businesses because of bigger payroll costs. They want no wage hike next year and say that wage policy should take into account the company's ability to pay and labour productivity by reflecting those differences across industries. The Korea Federation of SMEs said Korea's minimum wage to income ratio ranks 4th among OECD nations, while labour productivity ranks 29th. Korea's minimum wage is currently about $7 an hour. Now, tourism is one of the most lucrative sources of income for most countries, but a recent report shows that the average spending by foreign visitors here to South Korea has decreased steadily over the past year. Won Jung-hwan reports.
Foreign tourists are spending less when they visit South Korea, and the figure has decreased so much that it's now at a level which was last seen a decade ago. According to data by Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism and the Korea Tourism Organization on Tuesday, foreign tourists spent an average of $1,268 per trip in the first quarter of this year. That's down 12.1% from some $1,400 a year ago, marking the 4th quarterly decrease in a row. Spending by tourists had been rising steadily up to 2015 when it reached a peak of over $1,700 per person. Industry insiders say the falling numbers are due to Beijing's ban on Chinese group tours to South Korea following Seoul's deployment of a U.S. missile defense system. Diplomatic tensions with China led to that figure falling from 2016 as the number of Chinese tour groups, who tend to spend more than individual tourists, decreased significantly. The data also showed that Chinese tourists were the nationality who spent the most per person in South Korea in the first quarter, spending an average of some $1,700, followed by Taiwanese and Americans with some $1,100. The average length of stay by foreign tourists came to 6.9 days in the first quarter, down slightly from 7 days a year earlier. But the level of satisfaction shown by foreign tourists who visited Korea came to 93.9%, up slightly from 93.7% a year ago. Won Jung-hwan, Arirang News.
South Korea's exports have fallen drastically in recent months, and apparently local companies feel they're losing their competitiveness. A survey by the Chamber of Commerce shows firms are having a hard time generating new growth momentum and are losing ground to rivals around the world. Our chief economics correspondent Kim Hae-sung reports.
South Korean companies are sandwiched between those from developed and developing countries struggling to come up with new future businesses and fully utilizing technologies related to the fourth industrial revolution. These are the bleak findings of a new survey by the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry on 500 local manufacturing companies. More than 41% of respondents said their competitiveness is at the level of or behind emerging countries like China. That's 4 times higher than the corresponding result in 2010, when only 10% of local firms said that was the case. More than 60% of those surveyed said they're behind advanced countries like the U.S., a whopping 20 percentage points higher than the 2010 survey.
South Korean companies are losing competitiveness mainly due to a lack of innovation. Technology convergence across manufacturing, IT, and services is the new trend of the fourth industrial revolution. But regulations are so stifling that it's difficult for companies to try new things. Other countries have already eased regulations to encourage investment and nurture experts.
In fact, 2 out of 3 companies surveyed said they haven't found new businesses as a source of growth, citing a lack of technology funding and strict regulations. Near half said they aren't using new technologies related to the fourth industrial revolution, such as AI and big data, and only 6% said they are actively using the technologies. A separate report on corporate management by the Bank of Korea released on Tuesday shows South Korean companies posted negative revenue growth in the first quarter, mainly due to the sluggish manufacturing sector, including firms in the electronics and petrochemical industries. Their debt ratio also increased on quarter. The Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry says a firm platform to nurture fourth industrial revolution-related technology, improved corporate investment, and deregulation are required to ensure South Korea's manufacturers stay globally competitive in the years to come. 김혜성, Arirang News.
Facebook has removed ads by Huawei, which criticize U.S. claims that it's been spying on its users on behalf of the Chinese government. Meanwhile, Huawei has put a number on the impact it expects to see from its blacklisting by the Trump administration. Our Kim Da-mi has the details.
Facebook is taking a tough stance on Huawei advertisements for being too political. The UK-based daily The Telegraph reported on Sunday that the social network recently removed several ads purchased by the Chinese tech giant for violating its transparency rules. In one of the ads posted at the end of May and taken down last week, Huawei warned against mixing politics with technology, featuring a quote from its chairman, Ken Hu. Reaching over 1 million users in a month, the ad ran without a disclaimer about who paid for it, which is a requirement for Facebook ads about social issues, elections, or politics. The Trump administration blacklisted Huawei last month amid concerns the Chinese firm could use its equipment to spy on other nations on behalf of the Chinese government. Ever since, the U.S. has been lobbying its allies to rebuff the company's 5G network proposals. Huawei, however, continues to deny Washington's claims. While running an online ad campaign to try and convince people it's trustworthy, the chairman of Huawei said the tech giant will miss a sales forecast by about $30 billion over the next couple of years because of the U.S. campaign. Ren Zhengfei said Huawei is expected to post a revenue of about $100 billion in 2019, a decline from last year's $107 billion. While his comments seem to reveal the weight of the blacklisting on Huawei's financial outlook, Ren did not specify how he reached the $30 billion figure or his forecast for the company's 2020 revenue outlook. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
There have been expectations that the U.S. and Chinese leaders will talk trade when they go to the G20 summit next week in Japan. But the U.S. Commerce Secretary is playing down the prospects of a breakthrough. Speaking Monday to CNBC, Wilbur Ross said the G20 is not a place where Presidents Trump and Xi can negotiate what he called a 2,500-page agreement. But he said there could be some kind of a deal laying out a way forward. Ross said they'll have a deal eventually, but he emphasized that President Trump will put more tariffs on China if the talks continue to stall. The South Korean Army has introduced a revolutionary way of selecting its officers, the AI interview system. After a trial period, the Army aims to utilize its new artificial intelligence interview system in the selection of all officers by 2022. Our Kang Yong-woo has the story.
The South Korean Army's new artificial intelligence system is designed to choose outstanding personnel for leadership posts. The interview with the AI software should take less than an hour. As long as there's a computer with an internet connection, a webcam, and a microphone, applicants can go ahead with the online interview anywhere and anytime. The applicant gets an email containing instructions and a link. The interview starts with a self-introduction. After that, based on their occupational specialty, they play about 5 different games like finding a specific pattern on the side of a cube, or guessing how many times they can click a balloon on the screen before it pops. In the last step, they're asked situational questions and about their personality. Then the AI analyzes their performance based not only on their answers, but also their facial expressions, voices, and heartbeats. As a project under the Defense Ministry's Smart Innovation Plans for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, the new AI interview system is undergoing a trial period from this month. Some 10,000 commissioned and non-commissioned officers will be put up for the computer-based interview process to test out its reliability, and the resulting data will be compared with scores from traditional face-to-face interviews. The Army aims to set up the AI interview system by 2022 for all officers, but it says the final decision will be made by expert interviewers who can analyze each applicant's patriotism and reliability in terms of security. 강영우, Arirang News.
The Cultural Heritage Administration has allowed the permanent transfer of cultural heritage to a foreign country for the first time. 2 folding screens made during the 19th and 20th century called 책가도 and 연화도 have been sold to the National Gallery of Victoria in Australia and will be added to their list of exhibits. In principle, transferring cultural heritage overseas is prohibited. But the Korean government can give approval if foreign government-approved museums are transferring the piece for an exhibition. The government allowed the transfer as the 2 folding screens will have greater value abroad since there are many similar artifacts already in Korea.
The UN predicts that the world population will reach nearly 11 billion by the end of the century, though some countries will likely see their populations shrink. One reason for the growth, the UN says, is a longer life expectancy, which is projected to rise from the current 72.6 years to around 77 years by 2050. Half of the population growth between now and 2050 is expected to come from just 9 countries, including India, Nigeria, and Pakistan. K-pop boy band BTS have won the Global Phenom Award at this year's Radio Disney Music Awards. It was given in recognition of their global influence in music, fashion and dance. It's the 2nd year BTS have won a Disney award. The group were not present at Sunday's ceremony, however, due to concerts and fan meetings in Busan. The South Korean women's football team are out of the Women's World Cup in France following a 2-1 loss to Norway in their final group match. They finished last in Group A after losing all 3 matches. South Korea were hoping to reach the round of 16, something they managed to do at the previous World Cup in Canada. Asia's biggest animation festival will kick off in Seoul next month. The Seoul International Cartoon and Animation Festival will start its 5-day run on July 17th at the COEX Convention Center. More than 100 animated works from 28 different countries will be screened along with other events. Tickets for screenings are available on Naver and Interpark. That has been your 3-minute news flash. It is that time of the newscast where we take a look at some of Arirang's digital media content.
And Onion News is back, taking a look at the top trending stories.
Hi everyone, I'm Minson, a news reporter at Arirang TV, and here's today's Onion News. Hi everyone, good morning. It's Monday, and I'm on my way to Arirang NEWSCENTER. Here are our colleagues. 안녕하세요. 안녕하세요. All right. Let's go inside. This is where I sit. I need to get ready for my Onion News. So I'm finished with my articles. This is going to be today's Onion News. So now let's move to the studio for the filming. How was my vlog? Vlogs are already popular content on YouTube, and more companies are making their own vlogs to show what a typical day is like at their companies. Samsung is known to have a very strict security standard, but they recently posted a vlog made by their semiconductor engineer. In a self-recorded video, an engineer gives a tour of his office throughout a day to give an idea of what it's like being a Samsung worker. Other large companies like LG, Hanwha, and Hyosung are also making their vlogs, hoping to provide correct information and improve company's image. Do you want Arirang vlog? Let us know in the comments below. It's perfect weather to spend time outside these days. But you should be careful with this, otherwise you will not be able to eat meat anymore. This is the Lone Star tick. It's a bug that can turn you into a vegetarian, and it has been found in Korea. The tick was first reported in the US a few years ago when the number of people with meat allergies suddenly increased. It takes only one bite to become allergic to meat. Some people had severe allergic reactions to burgers, steak, or other red meats after being bitten by the Lone Star tick. It has been found not just in Korea, but also in other countries like the US, Japan, Germany, and Sweden. So be careful when you are outdoors. Ulleungdo Islands, located in the middle of the East Sea, is one of the most difficult major islands in Korea to access. And to improve local residents' quality of life and to promote tourism, the government decided to build an airport in Ulleungdo by 2025. Currently, it takes 7 hours by train and ferry boat, but once the airport opens, it will take only 1 hour from Seoul to Ulleungdo. Depending on the weather conditions, ferry boat operations were often closed, making it difficult for local residents to move around, especially in an emergency. It's an exciting news for both local residents and tourists. That's it from This Sunny Today. Make sure to like this video and leave comments below. See you next time!
It's been a breezy day with some sporadic showers, but it seems like heavier rain is in store later this evening.
That's right, and let's get more details from our Michelle Park at the Weather Center. Michelle, what's the latest?
Now, the rain that started in the northern regions of the peninsula has expanded to the central areas, including the capital city. Now, it will rain more later at night, and thunder and lightning are also expected along with the precipitation. And the southern regions, however, won't be affected by the rain this time. Now, rain will linger until the morning, and cloudy skies will develop by the afternoon in most places across Northeast Asia. Now, the daily highs will mostly fall between the mid to top 20s now, and Beijing, on the other hand, will have a scorching one with the mercury climbing up to 34 degrees Celsius tomorrow. Checking out the morning lows across the nation, Seoul and most regions will range between 18 to 20 degrees Celsius. And as for the highs, Seoul is expected to stay cool at 26 degrees, whereas Daegu and Gwangju will reach up to 30 and 29 degrees respectively. Now, rain forecasts will be frequent this week. Now, Seoul will see precipitation on Friday, while the rest of the nation will get wet on Saturday. And as for temperatures, we will be under bearable heat under 30 degrees Celsius mark. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
That will do it for this edition of Arirang News. Thank you, as always, for watching.
Stay tuned to Arirang for more analysis on current issues on News in Depth coming up next.